Today's episode is sponsored by the American Homebrewers Association. Become a part of the U.S.'s largest community of homebrewers for just $48 a year by going to unitedwedrink.com/AHA. What exactly do you get with your AHA membership? How about a year-long subscription to Zymergy Magazine, the world's longest-running homebrew magazine? Exclusive deals and discounts at over 2,000 breweries, bars, and bottle shops across America. Discounts on Brewers publication books and merchandise. Access to a huge library of previous HomebrewCon seminars and talks. And early access to purchasing tickets to each year's Great American Beer Festival and Savor. Sign up now by going to unitedwedrink.com/AHA and get a year's membership for just $48. And if you sign up now, you'll get a free gift. What's that gift? I'm not saying. You need to go see for yourself. It's pretty great. Support United We Drink, support homebrewing, and support the American Homebrewers Association at unitedwedrink.com/AHA. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast whose hostess are the mostest capable of doing this podcast. Welcome to United We Drink right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and I'm doing this intro alone, just by myself. And if you're a listener of this show, you probably know what that means. That means we have an interview coming up in just a little bit. Yes, in a little bit, Joel is going to be joining me, and we're going to be talking to someone who we've been wanting to have on this show for a long time. This person is a friend of ours. She is a longtime listener of this show, and we are going to have our dear friend, Anyaa Carter, coming up on here. Some of you might know her as BlackZag05 on Twitter. She is someone who is very outspoken in the craft beer community. She is a brewer. She is a beer fan. She is someone who had her career put on hold, kind of cut off at the knees, if you will, with the whole COVID situation that we're all continuing to deal with here all over the world, really. And she's going to talk to us about that. She's going to talk to us about frustrations that she had getting into this industry, getting to be where she was at before things just went all crazy, and how she's doing now. Think of this as like a mental health issue. Think of this as going back to when we talked about mental health and being able to say when you're all right and when you're not all right. And I feel like that we touch on a lot of these things in this interview. And it was a lot of fun. It's a longer one, so please sit back and relax. You might have to take a couple commutes to listen to this one. But we are so stoked, so happy to have our friend Anyaa here on the show. So please sit back, listen, and enjoy our conversation with Anyaa Carter.
All right, so I'm very excited to have this week's guest on. We are joined by Anyaa Carter. You may know her as BlackZag05 on Twitter. Truly one of my favorite follows because she just doesn't give a shit. And she'll let you know. Very candid. And I was especially impressed. I mean, I've been following her for a while. but I was especially impressed by her appearance on the Bitter Units podcast, which I re-listened to today in preparation of this. Just very straightforward and great candor about what it's like to work in this industry. And I feel, and everyone knows I've said that is sorely needed. And I feel like if people are more honest about what goes on in this industry and how things really are, then we can work toward improving it. So, Anyaa, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Excited.
I am too, because I actually think the opposite of Joel. I think that she gives a lot of shits about this industry, and that's what makes you so fun to listen to and follow along to. I can't remember when I started following you, but like when you started talking about like listening to the show and how passionate you were about things, like you started to stand out a lot to me. And then I have to say that episode on Bitter Units was probably the best podcast episode I've listened to all of 2020 and in a long time, because I was like pumping my fist and nodding my head and going, fuck yeah, to so much stuff that you were saying throughout that interview. And I think there's no shits given. I think that she gives a lot of shits, and that's what I'm hoping we can get some more of on this.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. When I recorded that podcast, it's kind of cathartic in a way, because like, talking about this industry, really talking about the industry has been hard because of coronavirus and not being able to make those connections that you used to do. And then COVID kind of stopping my brewing career in its tracks, instead of, me having control over my career. I kind of lost control over it. So it was definitely it's been a weird time of weird period of time for me.
And you, just a little bit of background for maybe those who didn't listen to the Bitter Units show or anything like that. You're in San Diego, right?
Yeah.
And you started working at North Park?
South Park Brewing.
Wrong direction.
Wrong direction. No, that's okay. So I got fired from my office job, which I was a scheduling manager for a private security company here in San Diego. I was totally burned out. They fired me, and that was my identity, was that job. I got out of college and I needed money, and I started working there. So that was my whole entire 20s almost. And then they fired me, and I was like, I really got to get, my shit together and do something that I like. And at the time, that was craft beer. It still is. But at the time, a friend of mine, Matt, had some bar shifts, and I was like, sure, like, let me go behind the bar at South Park, see how it's like. And then unemployment ran out, so I had to get another job while working behind the bar. And I didn't like the job at the coffee shop I was doing. Being a barista sucks. You should always, make sure you tip the baristas, because, it's more than just pouring your coffee. It's just terrible. And so I was working at the coffee shop and being behind the bar, and the brewer there was leaving for Karl Strauss. And so I jumped on the opportunity, and the owner was kind of like, are you sure? I'm not really, I don't know. And I'm like, I want to do it. And like, I don't have any experience, but like, I know I can do this. So, just start out washing kegs primarily, and then working my way up from there. And I was doing brewing stuff, working at the coffee shop and behind the bar for 2 years. And then finally in December of 2019, I quit my coffee shop job and I quit behind the bar. And so the first 3 months of 2020, I was just doing brewing stuff. So before COVID hit, and yeah.
Like it must have like felt like the rug was taken out from under you with how quickly like that turnaround must have been.
So I had told myself, this year was like the movement year. So the head brewer was having a baby, and he took a month off, and it was just me and the owner there, doing everything for a month. And I was like, I'll get through that month. I'll prove to everybody I can do it. I'll ask for my raise. I'll get my raise, or I'll leave. And then if I stay there, I'll quit at the end of the year, and I'll finally give myself some time off and time to reset. And when I got the call that, he was closing things down, I was fucking pissed. I was like really angry. I don't know, I'm getting emotional about it, but I was really angry because I was like, what the fuck? For the first time, in my life, like I thought I had, some kind of control over, my career, and things were going well. And so I had a lot of like anger and bitterness about that, because I was like, it took a first of all, I'm burned out. First of all, I'm burned out. Second of all, I had goals for the first time in my like career, and now I'm not able to meet it. And now now what am I going to do? Now who's going to take a chance on me? And I felt, just going back and forth about that a lot in my head.
Oh yeah, a ton of range of emotions. I can assume I'm lucky to have kept my job during this, and I'm grateful for it every day, because I know that there's people who are not so fortunate. And I mean, I feel bad for you, but I mean, I see you getting emotional, but I always felt like reading, and this is the wrong thing sometimes with social media. You can't see uh, the real range of emotion the person has, but like your positivity on line has always been an inspiration to me for just wanting to go out and kick ass and try to control things the best that you can. And
Yeah,
like
it was hard having that dialogue,
yeah.
because you have to kind of get over yourself. And I had to get over myself and be like, are you just going to like sit and be angry about COVID? Or
Yeah.
are you going to like move on? And like, are you going to stop feeling hurt because like you don't work there anymore? Like, what are you going to do? Like,
Yeah.
you don't own the place. So like, it was a tightrope. It was a tightrope anyway. Like you had to like scrape, and, it's really hard to like digest all that, because it's like, I needed to like stop myself, but I thought, I could manage that, but you can't manage shit like that. You just,
No, and it just wears on you for so long.
yeah,
I used to be happy about the fact that I could say about myself, I hold grudges very well. Like that, but now like I'm like, no, that's not a good thing to just hold inside of you and be bitter about. I mean, I can certainly say like that there's things that I was bitter about and held grudges over that I've let go of. I'm not going to go back to those places and support them, but I'm not also going to go out of my way to be a dick about it and hold on to that, because man, that shit just weighs you down.
yeah, it does. I mean, the thing is, like I felt like it's, you know, already like I'm fighting an uphill battle, because like, a black woman in craft beer, being a brewer, like I really felt like something was taken away from me, and it was like, like when you feel like you have the keys to your car and like you lose them, you're like, what the fuck? Like, these are the keys to my car, like, so, you know, brewing is really unforgiving, because beer doesn't give a fuck if you're sick, or if you have the anniversary, or a friend's birthday, or your parents are sick. It doesn't give a fuck. Like, it needs to be taken care of. And like, I had just that mindset, like I had to deal with that mindset of like turning that down in my head, of like, you need to turn that volume down. And like, that workaholic in me, that benefits owners and breweries. Because if you get somebody who really cares about their job, and you don't have to be like, and you don't have to put that much energy into making them care, then that's great. That's a great asset, for the owner. For the employee, not so much.
I think you just made a great segue into something that you did talk about on bitter units, and I definitely wanted to get into, is some of this, like how people get hired in the industry, how they get treated because of passion. That some people will look at a person who's passionate about wanting to get in this industry and take advantage of them. That job postings are not typically a thing for breweries of the size that all of us probably work for. It's mostly like, who do you know? And
Yeah.
like, oh, I know someone over here who might be interested in this. And very rarely do you see a brewery like that's under 5,000 barrels, like putting out job postings for stuff. And if they are, like, it's all the same old stuff. But I mean, yeah, I've seen way too many people come. I mean, I myself included, who came into this industry being like, I'll do whatever just to do this.
Yeah.
Take a huge pay cut, get walked over, get told what to do, and being told like, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that, and fuck your personal life, fuck like all
Yeah.
of that
Okay.
stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, fuck that shit.
Yeah.
I that's what I need to do. And it's you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that to people who then you will turn around and say like, this is our family. This is the family that we've built here in this brewery. Well, family doesn't tell other family, fuck your personal life. Like
Yeah.
that's some fucked up shit.
Yeah. I mean, like I said in my story, like the only reason I worked at South Park is because I knew a manager at South Park. I'm not going to sit here, and I had applied to beer jobs, and I didn't get any of those beer jobs. And I kind of feel like a job posting for a brewery is almost a nice little fine. We'll put it out there, but really,
Yeah.
like, those jobs are already spoken for. I feel like, especially at breweries, especially brewing jobs.
Yeah.
And San Diego's so tight knit. But on the other side of that, when I was looking at brewing jobs, I also didn't want to be the person who was just like, let me use my connections to get another job. And I also was very mindful of where I wanted to apply to. Not every brewery is a great situation. And I love a lot of breweries, but I didn't want to work there because I heard the behind the scenes, and it really broke my heart, because I was like, I can jump back into another job, but am I going to be happy? Um, and I kind of had to make a choice to just stay at home and like chill out and dry out from brewing, and not just jump into another job, because I don't want to be that person who, jumps from job to job. And I don't really want to owe a lot of people a lot of favors in this industry. It's incestuous. The industry is the same people get second, third, fourth, fifth chances, and you rarely see new people. And that's really unfortunate. Like, I really wish that would change. And the fucked up part is I'm not in a position to change it. Like, the only way to change it is to like get your own money and open up your own place and do your own thing. So,
And it seems like the people who do have that have no business sometimes
Yeah.
owning a brewery.
I've worked for
Well,
a couple of them.
yeah, I mean, this whole concept of, I'm gonna uh open a brewery for money. I mean, I don't know who the fuck these people are, but who the fuck's telling them that opening a brewery is profitable? I mean, like, do you like fucking problems all the time? Okay, like if you don't, like, I I don't know. I feel like there's not enough. I feel like there's brewer operators, owner operators who are like, I've seen all the time. They'll try to do everything they can, but they're not businessmen. Like they don't have business acumen, so they fail. So the passion isn't even enough. And then you see people with money, and you're like, oh, they got money, but then the people that they hire, they don't even give a fuck. And so like I'm looking for jobs, and I'm almost putting myself in a tizzy thinking about like where the fuck am I going to go where somebody actually gives a fuck and like who's not going to stick me you know, packing boxes on a fucking packaging line like the head brewer was. The head brewer that I worked with, the owner sold one of the businesses that he was brewing at, and um, the new owner, the new brewing director was like, it's good for you, folding boxes on a packaging line. And he was like, I'm an assistant brewer. Like, I shouldn't be on the fucking packaging line. And if he didn't stand up for himself and, say, hey, like, this is bullshit, like, I'm not a bottling line guy, he would have just been stuck there, you know? So it's almost like if you need to be an asshole to like be in this fucking industry. I mean, it's like you let people walk all over you until you can't. Like what the fuck is that? Like, how is that growth? You know?
Yeah, and there's definitely points that where people start and work their way up, but they can't stay there all the time. And
Yeah.
to be angry at someone for wanting to advance themselves and get better, move up, learn new things to better themselves and better the company,
Yeah.
is like why do you want to expect someone to sit at the end of a bottling or canning line and make cases all the time and that's it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't, the thing is, like, what, I just have to rail against all these, job listings for brewing jobs, packaging assistants, packaging operators. It's a lot of veiled information. And I really wish that I don't know who writes these job descriptions, but listing everything under the sun isn't really helping. And I don't
Yeah.
know, you're not listing the pay is, holding a lot of people back from this industry. Because you do have to give up a certain amount of comfortableness at the beginning. I'll accept that, but like, don't leave me hanging on the pay. Once you are an assistant brewer or cellar worker, and then just a long list of things that need to be done. I don't know, just some ridiculous things. Having the bachelor's of science and having this and that and certificates and stuff like that. Like, I get that. Um, but I know a lot of people who are being hired who don't have those credentials. So I'm kind of like, okay.
And even with those job postings that have all that stuff listed, they still won't even post a salary,
Yeah.
because probably for those people who have those degrees, if they saw what was being offered, they wouldn't even bother applying.
Yeah. I think I think a lot of breweries, brew pubs, they're too embarrassed to put their job wage up. And it's really unfortunate, because if you really feel like that's what you want to pay somebody, then be upfront about it. Like, don't hide it. Don't make people jump through hoops to apply to your job and then they find out it's minimum wage.
Yeah.
Somebody was like, what minimum wage jobs did you have? And I wanted to put brewing. I had brewing was a minimum wage job for me, but I didn't want to start any shit on Twitter, like, I don't know if I didn't want to start anything. So, but yeah, I mean, I started out as minimum wage, and let me tell you something, like, that's not a minimum wage job.
No, no.
And there's a very presumptuous mentality among breweries that it's like, oh, we'll pay you whatever we want to pay you, and there's 100 people lined up behind you to take your job because we're so cool and we're so hot and flashy and trendy and shit. I mean, and that's like kind of goes back to what we were saying about owners a minute ago. Like some of these owners who have money and have no experience running a business or know anything about brewing, and believe me, I've dealt with a couple of them. Um, they're just following a trend. You know, I've always said that these are the same people who 10 years ago would have opened up a gourmet cupcake shop in a strip mall somewhere. But, you know, that's not a place they want to hang out. These are guys primarily who want to have a little social club. They want a spot where alcohol is served. They want to hang out and get laid and all that lame shit. And there's a lot of like gross bro culture among owners that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, to I the part about when you hire, there's rarely like I know a lot of breweries that they don't even have like an HR department, and so it's like there's a lot of places that are breweries and brew pubs that don't run like normal businesses, okay, and they rely heavily on what Mike said, the family aspect of it. You're a part of the family. Your check bounced. Sorry. I'll make it up to you. And it's like, no, that's not really acceptable. And I was just like, I just remember a lot of times that at South Park where I would have conversations like, in the real world, you would get we're breaking a lot of rules here. we're skimming some rules, because this is a small business. But I also was like, I just need to put my head down and like get through this. Like I just need to like put this, like I need to get through this and get to a point where like I can like leave and like springboard from this. And so it kind of, after like getting shut down and all that, there was a lot of like feeling of guilt like with me, because I was like, man, like I sell my soul? Like, did I give like the best years to South Park? And like, now what am I going to do? What kind of situation are you going to move? Like, you like truly weren't prepared to make the next jump. Like you just put everything into South Park, because you loved it. You wanted to be there. You touched everything. You were involved in some decisions, not all. Um, and it like you had a lot of work to do, and you worked 6 days a week, but like you had a good situation there. What's next? And I was just like, it was just really disheartening to like think about the new place and like think about like horror stories that I've heard from other brewers who are just like, a common phrase that a couple of brewer friends of mine is, it's a privilege to be in this industry. Let me tell you something about privilege, motherfucker. Like, it's not a privilege to get hired onto the company that you created, and then you give me a job, and then I do everything I can and I bust my ass for you. I'm not doing that for the privilege of being in this industry. I need something out of you. Like, so like the whole, like, this is, I know a lot of people who would, and this has been said too, I know a lot of people who would want your job. Like Mike said, it's like, yeah, but then you'd have to go through all that bullshit over and over again. So what are you going to do? We're at a standstill. Are you going to change your ways and like give a little leeway here, or are you going to start over? I mean, it's like how much you're going to put up with. And that goes both ways. That goes brewer owner relationship, and then owner brewer relationship.
Yeah.
And to go back to what you were saying earlier about owners kind of I guess more or less taking advantage of employees who are already so passionate, because it's like you've got them, they're locked in. Like there's no, because I feel like I was in that position at a certain point. I feel like a lot of us here were, maybe Mike included, where
Yeah.
it was like, oh my God, we're working for a brewery. This is the coolest shit ever. And we're 100% dedicated and gave it our all. And then the owners are just kind of like checked out and never around and always on vacation and, you know, not helping build and maintain that culture. And like what they don't understand is like that's a house of cards that's just going to fall very easily. Like they don't understand that yes, it's great. You've got passionate people who are all into it and they're totally dedicated and everything. And they'll fucking, they'll absolutely go to war for you and stay late and work week. Like, I'm so glad you said like how yeast doesn't care, the beer doesn't care. Cause I've said that to people for years. Like they think I'm trying to talk them out of the industry when I'm trying to give realistic expectations. Like, I went into the brewery today to check on shit because it's like it doesn't matter if it's Sunday. It doesn't matter if I I don't go, but if I had to be in church, like it doesn't matter. Someone has to go check on that shit. So I just think like those owners don't understand that sooner or later that passionate person is going to be like, well, what the fuck am I doing this for? Like sooner or later the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah. So
I've never heard that saying before.
You've never heard that?
No.
what?
God, it's even more appropriate with what beer is like these days.
Yeah. So like I've definitely heard a lot of situations like you said, but my situation was, the owner was writing the recipes, and he was there a lot. He liked to drink there. We like to drink our beers together. And I was like, I was trying to fit in. And so I was trying to not only be everything at the brewery, there's the after work part of it where, um, I'm not going to lie, I was drinking a lot after work. And, I would get done with my day and then maybe do some, check a beer. And then the owner would come down and then we'd start talking and then it turns into beers. And then all of a sudden, it's 7 o'clock and, my boyfriend's calling saying, where are you? I thought you were done at 2.
Yep.
And so like it was very close relationship, but like it was like a vicious cycle because it got to the point where right before COVID, I was telling the owner, I was saying like, look, dude, I'm busting my ass for you. I really shouldn't have to like I've earned my pay raise and things are going to have to move in a different direction for this to keep going. I can't keep this up. I can't keep up not only the brewing part of it, but the after work part of it where, the expectation is to go to where your beer is tapped or go to a release and go do this and go to a festival. I was like, I've worked harder than a lot of people in your organization. And like, I definitely got into it with my owner a couple times about, hey, dude, like I'm out working a lot of people here. I don't know if you see that, but like you're lucky you don't have to worry about me. And it was kind of just like a tense back and forth to where it's, he agreed, but like where did we really get? And working that closely with an owner, I think there was more cons than pros because there was just a lot of, when it was me and then the head brewer and then the owner, there's a lot of things that don't get communicated, and communication was a huge thing. And sometimes he didn't like hearing this is broke or I can't do this or that. And it was definitely hard, because you have a lot of passion for it and you want to grow. But at the same time, I had a head brewer in front of me and then I had the owner, and I wasn't growing how I wanted to. And the relationship, the relationship was volatile at times. It was more like, what's your opinion about this? And, I was getting frustrated because I felt like I wasn't getting like my seat at the table. I was just being told like this and that, and my growth wasn't being taken into account. It's not like I got performance reviews. It's not like I got, and the performance reviews that I did get, I didn't agree with them. And I I thought they were a joke, to be honest with you, because I felt like, I just felt like what you wrote down on a piece of paper doesn't even like begin to, you don't even understand what I do for this company. And so, all that passion, I would do a lot of things that the owner didn't know about. I would take care of a lot of it. But then that was building a lot of animosity towards the company and the owner, because I was doing a lot of things that made my life convenient, but necessarily management didn't know. And I would take care of it, because I was passionate about it. Bartender needed something, I would just go do it. I don't need the owner to know, hey, I got the bartenders, a new growler or two. But all that stuff like really came to a head before COVID. And I was really burned out on that, really burned out. And that passion was really going away.
How big of a brewery is South Park?
It's a 5 barrel,
5 barrel?
but we brewed twice a week for, 2.5 years straight.
You 10 barrel FVs or
5 barrels.
just 5 barrels?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not that big of a brewery. And what I've seen in some breweries of like that size is it can be very difficult to advance because there isn't much room for growth for anyone. Like so the top is almost always going to be firm there, and you're not going to move up to head brewer if there's a head brewer there. And and that's where you have to like show your worth in helping out in other places, like it sounded like you were trying to do. And it's strange why anyone would feel animosity or feel like you're overstepping your bounds for helping out with doing that. Like I've never worked for a place to where I didn't have to help out the bar staff, or didn't want to help the bar staff, because more often than not, like they want help from the brewery. They want to know about the beers. They
Yeah.
have a problem with a beer pouring. A lot of them don't know how to troubleshoot the draft system, and you got to pop in there into the cooler and try to figure out what's going on. And to uh, go above and beyond is a way to try to show your worth at those small places, maybe just to even get a little bit of an extra raise. You learn something new yourself and maybe can apply it elsewhere. But yeah, sometimes with those small places, the ceiling is so much lower than and by saying bigger, meaning like a place that has a 15 or 20 barrel brew house, to where you could probably, and if you got a packaging line, you can specialize in packaging
Yeah.
if that's what you want to do, or you can be the head seller person, or try to become a shift brewer and lead
Yeah.
brewer or something like that.
I
It's just
mean,
tough with the small ones.
it is tough, and I was always taking on tasks. So, like I was I was doing everything in the cellar, and then I was doing inventory on Mondays, and then I was ordering gas, and then I was verifying malt and hops, and then I was carving the beer and transferring the beer. Then I was getting the bar ready for the bartenders. Then I was making sure that things were passed down to bartenders. Then I was troubleshooting for bartenders. And like that started to add up because I would be the only person there all day from the brew team.
Hmm.
And so there really wasn't like an oversight. It was just like whatever I set up. And then the rest of it was more like, can you just pass down to this? Can you pop into this? And, that stuff, of course, like I wanted to do it, but I think it started veering me off a path where I was focused on brewing and more of like a management thing. But I wasn't getting paid as a manager, and I
Yeah.
wasn't getting the recognition as a manager. So then that started to burn me out, because it's like you want people to be comfortable with like coming to you with questions and stuff, but then you also don't want to be a sounding board for an employee about little issues that have nothing to do with you. And when you start getting involved in that, then it's just like, like I'm not your direct manager. Maybe you should talk to somebody else about that. I'm just here because, like you said, it doesn't work. And then, there'd be a lot of, just easy troubleshooting things to where it's hard because, if you leave, and sometimes there's just no good answer to why, I don't know, the gas, is low. You change it out, there's a leak. How come the, bartenders don't know how to do leaks? Then you have to do training, and it's like, and then it was all on me. I felt like it was all on me. I took a lot of responsibility, but I wasn't good at saying, look, like, this is not working for me. And it was hard because I didn't want to say that. I wanted to keep pushing myself in my brewing career. I wanted to push myself. Like, I didn't want anything else to get in the way. So I just took on so much more responsibility than I could handle.
Yeah, and you got to be able to say, "Yo, I need some help.
Yeah.
Give me a hand here," or you need to find someone else who can handle this, that, and another, so I can focus on the real important stuff like the beer. And but I mean, yeah, and that's I think going back to the very beginning is how people can be taken advantage of, and that we're afraid, especially in those early stages of getting into this industry, of speaking up and saying anything, because you say something to just stick up for yourself, and you might find yourself getting fired. Especially us in Florida, we can be fired for any reason as long as it's not discrimination. It's a right to work state.
Yeah.
So if a boss doesn't like that you're sticking up for yourself, they can just be like, all right, you're gone. And now my passion has turned into the unemployment line. um I mean, luckily, I think for folks like Joel and I now, like, I'm going to be 10 years in the industry next year. I think Joel probably is too. And we feel a little more confident to be able to speak our minds, but it doesn't change the fact that there are still points where I have to pick and choose my battles, because like there it might be a really uphill one that isn't worth fighting, and you only that's through and working and understanding. And I, like you said, you learned about things going on at other breweries through the grapevine, having beers with people. You certainly hear those things. So if you end up going to work for one of those places, you can kind of tread how you need to. But it can be tough for someone brand new to be like, hey, that doesn't sound right, or hey, I need help, because you're afraid then it's going to turn into losing your job.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted, I just want to be clear. Like, it was a lot of things. Like, I chose to be there. It wasn't like I was held hostage.
Oh,
But
no,
like,
no, no. Yeah.
it wasn't, I was sacrificing a lot of, like, you know, uh, I guess workplace standards to, like, get to my goal. And California is more, they're more of a, we'll listen to the employee kind of place. But breweries are weird. It's a lot of, like, there's a lot of feelings involved in the brewing industry. So
Yeah.
I I found, sometimes I'd have interactions with people, and then they'd be like, "Oh yeah, so and so told me you're an asshole." And I'm like, that person was like blackout drunk in, like, the tap room. Like, I don't even, like, I don't have an opinion about that person, but, like, I somehow came up in conversation, and, like, I was starting to, like, figure out, like, hey, like, what's my reputation in this industry going to be? Like, what am I building myself on? And that's where I wanted to, like, differentiate myself, where I started wanting to make some movement away from just being, the assistant brewer or cellar person at South Park. And so I started thinking on the big picture, but I didn't have a lot of leverage because I was swarmed down and wanting to, like, keep moving and keep advancing because, I thought that, I would cover for the head brewer, and, like, all these opportunities would, pop up for me, and we'd finish GABF and we'd finish WBC, World Beer Cup. And, I thought all these things and I thought it was laid out, but, like, really it just, you know, I never had a lot of control over, what my trajectory was. Like I felt like I just kept taking on more and more and more and inadvertently burning myself out, and then but still maintaining some kind of level of competency in this industry. And I just want places to be, the next place I go, I just want it to be better. I just need to be better, like I don't want to be burned out.
And it's not much to ask. And I feel like a lot of people who could listen to this, myself included, totally understand what you're saying. I feel like it's too common of a story. And speaking of, we kind of mentioned not speaking up. You on the Bitter Units podcast, you said I was being a bit too nice about the flights and everything, and maybe I hadn't had enough Trulies of that episode. So I think I was having this conversation with Mike recently. Like it's definitely hard, at least for someone like me sometimes, to be an adult and be the rational, tactful, level-headed person that I need to be, because there's just a lot of situations where I want to tell people to go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't always work. And, obviously I wasn't on that episode to defend myself, but believe me, when it, like I did believe everything I was saying about like how flights are, meant to guide people toward, the next beer they're going to love from your brewery and that kind of stuff. And there's a value in fractional pours, but believe me, like the person inside me is like, oh, another fucking flight. Great. I got to go grab 8 glasses. I got to, and of course, with my luck, this person is going to be chewing gum throughout the entire flight. They're going to be, letting everything go warm. I mean, nobody realistically brews with the intent of having their beer served in a 4-ounce glass that, you can't get your nose into, that's served on a shitty, sticky wood paddle. I mean,
You might be onto a concept here. 4-ounce brewing company.
Nice.
That is the largest pour that you can get.
Or Splash
Yes.
Brewing Company.
It's
like my favorite was people. Can I get Splash?
Oh,
Splash. And sometimes I would give them like the smallest, just to be just to fuck with the people, because I was getting fucking pissed because it was their 3rd splash. There's rules to this shit. You get 2 splashes. If you ask for a 3rd one, I'm gonna fucking be a bitch about it. You can't ask for 3 splashes. No. And then you can't. Yeah.
Seconded. Joel, do you want to pass that motion?
Motion carried. We actually have at Mike and my first brewery, we had kind of an older lady coming in literally every single day, right around opening, and she would just get splash after splash after splash. And fortunately, like Mike and I were kind of
On the brewery side.
Yeah. We I was thinking, what's the word?
Just watchers, observers.
We were emancipated from the tap room. I was thinking of like, how kids will like emancipate themselves from, So yeah, we were on the brew house side now and didn't have to do much to do with the tap room anymore. But I don't know who handled it, but eventually somebody told her, like, look, lady, you got to cut this shit out. Like order a fucking flight, get a glass. It's enough. Like, it's not even like, it almost feels like textbook alcoholic behavior, because it's not like they're shots.
Yeah.
I mean, they're shots volume wise, but you're not going to get your daily fix off, a blonde ale or something. So yeah, I mean, there's so much of that ridiculousness. I mean, believe me, I've been on all sides of the flight debate, and while I don't brew beer with the intent of having it presented that way, I do understand the value of guiding people toward the right beer and hopefully making a fan out of them.
No, I totally get that too. I just don't like it when people get flights and they don't finish them.
Oh yeah. I mean,
you know, just tell me what you want then. Don't get a flight of shit that you don't want. Like, I would always tell people, like, what do you like? They'd ask me, what do you like? And I'm like, well, what do you like? Like, who cares what I
Yeah,
fucking
doesn't matter
like?
what I like.
You come in here and I give you fucking a pastry stout or whatever. And then you'll be like, oh, I don't like pastry stouts. Okay, well, like, what do you like? Like, what do you want? Like, let's just cut to the chase. The thing about South Park is the bar there was the brewery and then the bar was right there. Like, you could sit and touch a fermenter, or you could sit and watch a whole entire brew day at South Park.
yeah.
So the customer interaction was like, if a bartender was late, then all of a sudden I'm the bartender. You know,
Yeah.
I'm opening up the place. I'm fucking
Oh,
turning
yeah.
on TVs. I'm turning on the fucking thing. I'm pouring flights. I'm doing this. And by the way, we're about to knock out and I got to get the fucking tank set up and all that shit. And so, like, and then people would come in and they'd be like, you know, we'd have to the bartenders, like, when people come in, they look at us. And then we're not the bartenders, though. We're brewing. So you need to, like, move yourself out of the corner and, like, actually go do things. And, like, it was hard because, you know, you wanted the bartenders who were on, they'd have questions and, you know, sometimes they couldn't answer them. And so then they'd look at us and I'd be like, okay, you know, and then all of a sudden you're pouring a flight for the, you know, for the people, you know, you're pouring beers. And it was like, it's just such a chaotic energy in there. And I'm just like, I just got burned out on that. I just got burned out on people asking for fucking splashes and flights. And I get it, you know, but you're right. The same people, I had customers who week after week, the same people would come and ask me for the same sample of the same beer. And I wanted to be like, dude, you tasted it last week. Like, it's not changed.
I've got your Untapped review right here on my phone. I know you had it already.
Oh, man. Oh,
You
Untapped.
rated a splash.
Yes. Some people do that.
Yeah. Fucking tickers.
Well, look, since we're talking about service, I want to get into something that you had quite the thread on the other day, and that's tipping. And I agree. I totally agree wholeheartedly about everything you said. I mean, especially now, like, tipping should be bigger and more prevalent than ever. And it feels like some people, based on a lot of stories you see online, are using COVID and the current employment situations and everything to, like, do less of that when it should actually be more. And my thinking ever, because I started in the brewing industry just working the bar twice a month. And then I just loved being in a brewery and I wanted to be there as much as I possibly could. So, like, twice a month turned into, weekly, and then that turned into twice weekly. And then I started bar backing and I picked up any shift I could. And then you really got to see behind the scenes of, like, how patrons behave and how they tip, and you talk to the other bartenders and you listen to, like, oh, $160 check and they tip $10, these cheap pieces of shit. And I mean, you do that for a couple of years and you really get an understanding of, like, what the general public is up to. And I felt like I was always a good tipper, not because I had that experience, because I never worked any jobs like that before that. That was in my early 30s starting out. So I had never, worked at, like, a restaurant or I never waited tables or anything like that. I think initially my behavior for tipping came from having a father who was a fucking horrible tipper. Like, it was embarrassing. I was always, like, throwing a little cash on top on our way out, because it was like, I have to come back here. Like,
Yeah.
he's a fucking horrible tipper and looks down on these people, but it's like, this is embarrassing and I have to come back here and I'm sure they'll remember. So it kind of came from that, and I could tell how hard people were working. But I feel like, kind of like how Israel has conscription, where you have to serve 2 years in the military. I feel like America should have, 4 years. Like, fuck college. Everyone should, wait tables at Applebee's for 4 years.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. So first, going from a desk job to a brewing job or a bar job behind the bar was very jarring because I was working with people. First of all, working with a bunch of young kids, and they're 21 to 25, and they're there's drinking on the job, and there's drinking, but then there's not drinking, and what's the line? And I was like, okay, like I don't know what the line is. And then there's tasting, and I was like, well, I had all the standards of working in an office, and like that just doesn't always, that didn't really translate to behind the bar. So I was like a stickler for the rules, so like I was like, man, if somebody, if that person's drunk, like cut them off. But when you're in that environment, there are people who are like, well, he's a regular here, so it kind of gets out of control every once in a while, but he's a good tipper, let him go for a while, he'll be okay, we'll just call him a cab, throw him in a cab. So I had to adjust to all that. And then I was an okay bartender. I never let anyone know that I was a part of the brewery team, because I would get a lot of reactions that I didn't like, such as, oh, how'd you get that job? And I'm like, I asked for it. They'd be like, oh, well, how long you been doing it? And it's like 2.5 years.
Oh, you get to
So-
make the beer and drink the beer all day?
Oh, so you really like beer? Or I would get the question, do you like beer? And I'd be like, yes. And I just thought just the weirdest things, like just I didn't like those. I didn't like being called honey or sweetheart or anything like that. Anyway, so after I stopped brewing, like they brought me back to do like bartending shifts during COVID. And so, man, that was like my first time opening up with COVID. This couple came in and they had an $80 tab and didn't tip anything. And I was just like, it's the middle of a pandemic and they didn't tip anything. They got beer to go, they got stickers, they got food, they got everything. They just didn't tip though. And I was like, what's going on? And I would say during COVID, there were people who just didn't tip at all or tipped 75 cents or $1. And I was like, people are not understanding that there's a pandemic going on, and that there's twice the work to do as a bartender. And you should be tipping even more, and you should be tipping on to go. A lot of people didn't realize that kind of concept. And like, somebody on Twitter was like, oh yeah, I never tipped to go beer. And like when the pandemic started, I started it. And I was just like thinking in my head, like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, you think that you can just go to a brewery and not tip? Like you are getting a product and like someone's serving you, someone's getting something for you, like tip. And so when I went out and got takeout, this guy was like, he just seemed like he was in the weeds, and like I tipped him and he was like, thanks, like I really appreciated it. But he also looked like beaten down. And I cannot for the life of me understand the people who are going out there during a pandemic right now and you're not tipping or you're poorly tipping. What the fuck is your problem?
Yeah, it's like if you can't do that, like I can get if you're strapped, but
Yeah.
then you don't go out to eat.
Don't go out.
Yeah,
Don't
go to the grocery store, get stuff, and then do it at home. Like I'm not faulting you for that. You can't go out and like adequately support a local business. Like you got to know your own means, but yeah, you got to take care of those people. And I always try my best to do that. Like I almost said, unfortunately, maybe unfortunately, grew up doing a lot of stuff in the hospitality industry, like being
Yeah.
some of my first jobs were being a busboy and a waiter. And so it's always been kind of instilled in me of tipping service people like that. I mean, the people who get my coffee, and all I do is get drip coffee, and I still tip them on that. right after Thanksgiving, my barista refused to take my tip, and it made me mad. But like I then the next time I came in, I like threw a $5 bill in the tip jar when she wasn't looking. So, but yeah, like I mean these people. Unfortunately, this is the world that we live in America. Is that jobs like this rely on tips. When I went to Spain, I went to a beer bar and I got a beer and I tipped the bartender €1 for getting me a beer, and they were blown away. They were like, "Oh, American tip." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, and I got it to talking to them, and they're like, "Yeah, you normally like you round up to the next dollar and that change is yours, or it's like 15 whatever cents, like I don't know what the correct term for the cents on a euro is, but like because they actually do make more hourly than our bartenders and our service people do over here. So he was completely blown away that I gave him a euro tip for pouring me a beer. I learned a lot. We had a nice little 5-10 minute conversation, and it was an interesting perspective as an American on how different the service industry is than somewhere else in the world.
Yeah. I just you have your favorite bartenders, you have your favorite places, like just tip like you would want to be tipped. Um, and the regulars were the best part, but the best part about bartending were the regulars who would come in every week and you'd have an actual conversation with them, and you'd have that back and forth with them. So those were the best. But like if you're going out there in a pandemic, like you got to tip better. You got to do better.
Yeah,
Um, and I know it seems weird, breweries, even if a place is open, a brew pub, brewery, tap room, it doesn't mean that they're doing good. There's a lot of
yeah.
places that are not doing good. And there are a lot of places that are going to close still. So just tip like you want them to stay open. Shit.
Yeah. Don't don't end up being one of those people who says, "Man, I love that place. I should have gone more often."
Yeah.
Now is your chance to go more often to those places that you love so much to help them stay.
Yeah. One of the good things about the pandemic is like I really like narrowed down a lot of things that I didn't love to do. A lot of places I didn't love to go, and like now I'm like hyper focused on the places that I want to stay open.
Um, Joel, before we, you know what? I do have a quick question before we start kind of winding down here. You recently got a new job.
Yeah,
Now, not in the brew. You're not brewing,
yeah.
but you were super excited about it on Twitter the other day. Again, another congratulations. Like, do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be working for a yeast company, as a customer service rep, and so we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's keeping me in the industry, which is really exciting. Um, but there's the be answering phone calls and ordering yeast for brewers, and hopefully, getting to do some other cool shit along the way while I figure out what to do about brewing. But
I assume
I'll,
learning a lot about yeast
yes,
in the meantime, which can definitely go a long way.
yeah. So definitely, brushing up on reading my yeast book that I got, and definitely learning more, and hopefully bring something to the table, to the team, because they're like, they're just like looking for somebody who has a little bit more knowledge on the brewing side. But I don't know how much knowledge I'll get to bring to the table. But it's exciting. I really I'm sad that I'm not going to be going to another brewing job, but you got to pay the bills.
Yeah. And I think yeast and water are the two ingredients that are often overlooked
Yeah.
in making beer, and you get to be a part of one of those very important parts of making beer and learning more about that. I still do not know nearly as much about yeast as I probably should and could. So I think it's probably a matter of time before you know a ton about this little thing that helps make what we do happen.
Yeah, yeast, it's a really dense topic. Like it's really dense, but the good thing is there's a lot of like there'll still be some fun things that hopefully I can pick up because, um just because you buy yeast from wherever you buy it, it's still what you do with it. So it'll be fun to see or, talk to brewers, hopefully, see what they're doing with the yeast, see um, what projects they're doing with it, and hopefully getting to talk to a couple people about, what exactly they're doing with reusing and all that stuff. So hopefully I just keep connected on that. It's hard because like San Diego is just it's shut down right now. There's no indoor dining. There's just to go. So like you're not really going to like places and experiencing it. So once we get over this and open back up and everybody gets vaccinated, or hopefully a lot of people get vaccinated, it'll be good to like go and like visit places and like get back into the connection because this is a people business.
Yeah.
And it's been really weird not interfacing with people in the brewing industry. And so like I miss that part of our industry. I miss that connection. I miss seeing the regulars who, even though they're a pain in the ass, like I miss seeing those people, so the social aspects of our industry is like super important. I realized during COVID.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the whole like stir craziness and like COVID fatigue, coronavirus fatigue is a very real thing. It's just a matter of like not getting yourself like not completely giving up on being good and the greater good out
Yeah.
of all of this.
Are
Like
you
we'll
guys ready?
eventually get to the point where eating out and going and hanging out in a bar till whatever time will be socially acceptable again. I don't know when, but it'll happen. Like I say that to my wife a lot. She sometimes is just like, man, I just sometimes want to just go to a fucking dive bar and get a
Yeah.
beer and a shot. And I'm like, I know. We'll get there sometime.
Are you guys ready for beer festivals again?
No.
I didn't like beer festivals during pre-COVID times most of the time. I
Oh,
learned that I'm awkward as fuck at those things. I
Come
don't know
on.
how to
beer
react to a lot of people.
dude, beer festivals are like you're stuck between being held hostage and just like drinking yourself into oblivion.
Yeah.
Those are my two things for beer festivals. Like I'm held hostage by the beer. Like I want people to connect. The greatest thing is the first 30 minutes of a beer festival. The first 30 minutes of a beer festival are great because people are like energetic and great. The last 30 minutes of a beer festival
The
is
worst.
you're in hell and you can't go anywhere and you're just stuck, and people don't use their words anymore. Like
They just hand you a glass
they just hand
and
you
just
a glass.
You just go whatever.
Yeah, which one do you want? Which one do you have? That one.
Joel, anything else you want to bring up?
No, I thought this was great, and I really appreciate you joining us. I guess we're a little bit late to this. Normally, this is how we jump off. I know you were drinking a High Life earlier, but it looks like you're working on something else. What are you drinking right now?
So I'm drinking a North Park Covington, which is the American Pilsner.
Sweet. There's a North Park and a South Park.
There's a North Park Beer Company and there's a South Park Brewing. And
In the same city?
in the same city. There's two
So
different
that's why I
Yeah.
was confused by
They're
it.
two different neighborhoods. So I live in South Park and I worked at South Park. And then if you go up like 30th, there's North Park. And then a furniture store was converted by a home brewer, Kelsey McNair, and he's a great brewer and he's really been killing it, man. Like he just went all can. He just went to all cans when the shit started and just started cranking out like 2-3 can releases, and it's a damn good Pilsner.
Awesome.
Nice. How about you, Mike?
I've been drinking a beer that I got today at Coastal Karma Brewing Company's Santa's Cup of Joe. It is a coffee porter with cinnamon and hazelnut on like a 5.5% porter. It is
Nice.
very delicious. I had it while I was there today. My first time visiting them today. They've been open for probably about 4 or 5 months now. Finally got a chance to visit them, and they do 16-ounce crowlers. So I got 2 of them.
All right.
What about you, Joel?
I've had about 40 things to drink tonight, but right now I'm wrapping up a single in Havana from the fine folks at Barrel of Monks Brewing, Belgian style blonde ale with guava.
Dude, congrats on the sellout for the IPA.
Yeah.
Thanks.
They posted it on Instagram. They're like, hey, we're all sold out. Sorry.
It's crazy. I was working on the Endless Enigma earlier. Our assistant brewer, Ralph, is like this mad scientist with hops, and he has helped devise a rendition of this beer that's been around for a bit now. It was originally like a Belgian style pale ale, and he's turned it into this like hazy, juicy Belgian style IPA, and it was such an inspirational beer for me last year when I tried it toward the tail end of last year, and just really blew me away. I mean, to kind of, if it feels like with IPAs, there's always someone trying to come up with some version of it, whether it's double, triple, quadruple, rye, black, all these different renditions of IPA, and to combine, to sort of stick with the Belgian roots and then turn it into this tropical thing was really mind-blowing. And I was telling everyone I could before I ever started working there, like, you need to get over there. Don't sleep on those guys. Go check out that fucking beer, because I'm telling you, it's something new and different that you're not expecting. And it's so balanced and well done. This version I had nothing to do with. This was all done before I came around. I think the dry hopping was done right after I started, and these guys just killed it with it, and we're so proud of it. So hopefully, it got us a few new fans, and let people know that yes, we're still all Belgian style, but we're willing to kind of go outside the box and try some cool shit that people are into. So it's been cool. It's been a really interesting ride.
Nice.
Yeah, cool. I'm disappointed that I know some people who can probably hook me up with a can if some exist still.
Hook it up, bro. We're not going to talk about beer Twitter.
Oh God.
Joel's favorite group of people.
Yeah. Well, here's another question that we hit with all of our guests with. So it's you've been to a beer festival, working it or attending it otherwise. Now you've got to eat. And what's around the corner? Taco Bell. What is your order?
Okay, my order is Mexican pizza and 2 regular crunchy tacos with the dollar menu bean, cheese, and rice burrito.
Now, what happens when you get to the drive-thru and they tell you the Mexican pizza has been discontinued?
I pull out my gat and then I just
because they've got the ingredients, right? It's not like it's that far of a stretch.
Yeah. So then I'll go cheesy gordita crunch. Nice. 2 of them. I'll be super disappointed, but like I'll settle, whatever.
I know they announced that they're bringing potatoes back. So they're bringing back some of those menu items that were like a potato centric. They didn't announce the return of the Mexican pizza through that, did they?
No.
No. And that feels very like too soon. They discontinued it, I think, in November, and places had already basically November was announced as like the final date to get them, but once places ran out, they ran out. It wasn't like they were going to keep it going until that date.
Yeah.
So when it was gone, it was gone. And March 11th is the date they're advertising. And it seems like it's way too soon to bring that back. And I don't know anything about Mexican cuisine at all, but when I hear the word potatoes, it just doesn't sound right. The nacho fries are okay. Like I think you could dip anything in that cheese sauce and it would be awesome.
Well, yeah.
But like I don't like, out of all the things they serve, I hear potatoes and it feels too heavy.
The people who like the potato Taco Bell stuff really like it. Like, they're like, no, we like spicy potato tacos. We get this, we get that. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't understand. Like, I'm not going to Taco Bell to like have potatoes.
The
like,
cheesy potato.
Can I get the chalupa au gratin? Like what?
Which is what the cheesy potato burrito basically was. And I would get those every once in a while, but you are right, Joel. Like it is just so dense and heavy. Like I love potatoes in practically any form that they can be made in. But yeah, Mexican cuisine is not usually where I would like put them at. But to each their own. Who the fuck am I? I like to eat goat.
Goat's good though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
People who don't know, you're missing the fuck out.
I think people need to like really focus on some cooking to 2021. Make this their year, cook some shit that you like, don't fucking feel like, you have to fucking follow. I would follow the recipe once and then figure it out from there. But I would actually cook stuff that you want to cook. Don't like start fucking trying to make pasta if you never fucking made pasta. And I've seen like a lot of people like in my timeline saying like, I can't cook and like I'm a shitty cook. And it's like, no, just fucking make what you want and then
but you also gotta fuck up. Like,
but yeah, you have to fuck up. You have to miss some ingredients. You have to fucking know your stove. Like, come on, just try a little bit, people. 2021.
Yeah, knowing your stove is super important. My stove fucking sucks, but hopefully we're in the process of getting a new house, and hopefully that stove will be better. Fuck it, yeah. If you're putting something in there, finding your hot spot where the right spot is inside of there, super important. Yeah, make shit, and
make it.
And when you're not making shit, tip the people who are making the shit for you.
Yeah, tip those people. Tip people like you give a fuck. Have some sympathy and empathy for people.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well,
that sounded like her last call.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much was. Yeah. Unless there's something else that you want to go off on a little bit.
There's a couple things. Sorry, I'm just laughing to myself. But anyway, I would just say that is my last call. Like seriously, tip. But also, I'm really afraid for people in 2021. You need to actually read things before you put it out in the ether. So just everybody, take a little step back. And if you're retweeting something or reposting it, or just read it, just start practicing, media literacy. Start, before you go out, look up the times of your breweries, look up the times of your brew pubs, call a place, put like a little bit more extra effort into the things that you actually do. So, just become more, media savvy and like give the places that, you know, the times are changing for everybody. You know, they're open for takeout, they're not this. So just, you know, call a place before you go out. Don't make multiple reservations and bail. You know, call if you're going to bail. Like, just be a good person, you know, just read shit and then fucking always come through with what you're supposed to. That's my last call. Does that make sense?
Great words. Just be a good person.
Yeah.
I think that's something we all could live by.
Mike, do you have one?
No, not really. I just I was going to shout out Coastal Karma, and also checked out a new brewery in West Palm Beach this weekend, Skunkworks Brewing Concern. They just opened 2 weeks ago, and went over to their spot over up in Northwood, and really cool little spot, nice patio area, some good beers on, had a really nice Helles and hazy IPA over there, and got to talk with Steve, the owner, a little bit. Hey, he's a PA boy too, from Ambler, PA.
Nice.
And he saw me wearing a Phillies hat and was like, "Hey, you from there?" Like, yeah. So shout out to Philly and Ambler, home of Forest and Maine, one of my favorite breweries in the state of PA. Yeah, go support your locals. I was super happy to. I've been looking forward to them opening for a while. I've been meaning to get up to see Coastal Karma for a while. Just been, you know, quarantining for so long. Luckily, it wasn't super busy, so we were able to go off to a corner of our own. They have some outdoor seating as well. Hoping to check out a couple other local places, and also hoping to get down to see Joel at Barrel of Monk soon. It's been a long time since I've been down there, and like, if you can support and you feel safe enough to support, please do, because it really helps all of us. I mean, I'm the amount of regulars we have at Copper Point is amazing, and those people help keep our lights on, and I'm eternally grateful for all of those people's support. And like, the fact that I get to, like, I feel almost compelled that I have to stop and talk to a lot of them now, because like they're truly helping us. Like, a lot of times I'd be like, in places like, yeah, I'm busy, I gotta go back, even when I wasn't, because
Yeah.
I'm awkward. I don't like talking to people that I don't know that well. But now, like, you know, these folks have helped me stay employed, and I give them my ear when I can, and chit chat with them, and give them info on beers, and I'm sure I hope that I can help make their day a little bit, if I can. But they certainly have helped make my year.
So
So
you have groupies, Mike. You have beer groupies. Come on.
yes,
Look at you.
all of those 50-year-old dudes who like to hang
Oh,
out at the bar, they're
so
they're
hot.
groupies.
Woo.
I know Joel wants to go off on something here.
No, I was gonna talk about that thing you and I talked about before, but you know, since we're talking about 2020 and 2021 and all that shit, what I want to say, and I know Mike has heard this from me before recently, but all of the fucking Debbie Downers out there who are talking about, like, oh, 2020 said this, and then 2021 said hold my beer. Go fuck yourself. Okay, look, 2020 threw us all for a loop, fucked a lot of us. A lot of us are dead, but it's a new year. It's a fresh start. Yes, shit is still going on. It's not like this is a whole new season and everything just reboots. This is not, you know, well, I mean, it honestly is American Horror Story, but I'm contradicting myself every step of the way here. But I just want to say that, like, yes, last year fucked us all up, and it's going to be hard to recover from, and there will be ripple effects for a long time. But it's a fresh year, it's a fresh start, and let's leave the fucking excuses behind. Make it the year you want. And I was telling Mike this, like I was dealing with a guy recently who was, it was basically like a little transaction we had going on. He was trying to get the best of me and I was trying to get the best of him. And ultimately I held strong and got exactly what I was going for. So do that. Do not let, the idea that, oh, all this shit is going on and the world is in chaos and insurrection and COVID and all that. Like, yeah, there's a lot of shit going on, but you really got to consider what it is that is actually affecting you. And believe it or not, it's very little. Just because you're, jacked into the fucking Twitter matrix all day and with this 24-hour news cycle, and you think that every little thing going on in the world is somehow like this intravenous, just injection into your bloodstream. It's not like that. Very little of it is actually affecting you directly. So get yours. This is your year. Quit fucking around. I'm so happy Anyaa is back in the industry in any form whatsoever. And believe me, you'd be my first hire if I had my own brewery. But I want people to leave all that 2020 bullshit behind. I don't want to hear hold my beer. Like, look, Phil Spector is dead. Trump's off Twitter. Like, this is our
Fuck yeah,
year. Everything's coming up Millhouse. Everything's going well. Let's keep it going.
No, dude, I failed to mention one part is, after because I was the follow up to me being really angry and like sad and like maybe still a little bit sad, is that, I'm going into this new job and I'm like, I feel like free. Like, I feel like fucking free because I'm like, you know what it's like to burn yourself out. And you've had this pattern of just burning yourself out. Like, make this what you want it to be. And guess what? Not everybody's problem is your problem. Really focus in on you and like what you're putting out there and like what your work output will be. And there's just no rush. Like, in a proper company, you'll be recognized for your work and you don't have to kill yourself at work. And so there's been a couple things starting this new job to where I've kind of wanted to like hit the ground running and like prove myself. And I'm like, you know what? Just work within the confines they gave you and just like let it happen. Like, let things just go. And like, you don't have to like prove yourself anymore to anyone. Just be yourself, focus on what's positive for you and focus on something else except for making something like a company happy. So, man, I feel you when you say that. Because I feel like the momentum I'll get from this job is I'll finally be, when I get back into brewing, I'll be able to be like, listen, I know what it's going to take to set up a good team and, to make sure that everybody feels like they're contributing without killing themselves, because that's what we need in this industry. We need people not to burn out and feel like the only fucking option is to quit or fucking take a year off or fucking a life event happens. And then that's when they make the decision to change their trajectory in this industry. We need the brewers to be safe mentally, physically, emotionally, and we need to give them the fucking tools to be successful. We need brewers to be able to be like, hey, I'm not fucking okay. Not some fucking tagline, but genuinely, I'm not okay. And I cannot fucking deal with this shit about the glycol right now. There needs to be like a system to where it's like, I'm not the fucking person on the roof resetting the fucking glycol. I've done that. It feels fucking miserable to be that person. Okay, like we need to think about our industry going forward, and there's going to be a lot of tightening of purse strings, but man, this is a fucking skill, and the people who are in this industry who are passionate about it, we need to protect them, and we need to make sure that they're in the best position possible, because there's going to be not a quick return to a full busting, robust tasting room staff and all that. People are going to have to wear a lot of hats. And man, I really want brewers to like be able to just be safe and not taken advantage of. anymore. Fuck, man.
Amen.
So much yes to that. Yeah. I think that that's a great note to bring it all back around. Anya, do you want to plug where folks can follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at blackzag05. And if you try to find me on Instagram, I may or may not accept you. I don't know. Depends on how I'm feeling that day. But you can always just I accept anyone on Twitter. So there's that.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. We've wanted you on for a while, and we're so thankful for you taking this up. Also, probably last minute too. I know we weren't very good on planning this out well in advance, but thank you so
Anything for
much.
you guys. Anything
You-
for you guys. Seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you again. We once again want to thank our friend Anyaa for being here on the show. Like I said in the intro, something we've wanted to do for a very long time, to have her on, have her talk. And she certainly enjoys talking, and we enjoy talking with her. And again, check her out on Twitter to be able to hear anything that she's saying, whether that be about beer, sports. She's a huge sports fan as well, and just the world in general. We love her, and hopefully we can have her on the show again in the future. In the meantime, want to just throw out some plugs. Make sure that you follow the show at United We Drink on Twitter, at United We Drink Pod on Instagram. Our website is unitedwedrink.com. And you can also subscribe to the show on any of the major podcast services, whichever one you like to listen to podcasts on, you can subscribe to it. If we're not, by some weird reason, please let us know, and we'll do our best to get onto that service. But Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, we are on all of those. If you're on Apple Podcasts, if you can give us a rating and a review, the rating literally takes a second to do. We would greatly appreciate it. The review takes however long you want to take and write a review. It can be a few seconds. It can be a minute. It really helps out the show and its algorithm on Apple Podcasts. If you can do that, we greatly appreciate it. You can support the show financially, monetarily, if you will, by buying a shirt, button, sticker from our web store, unitedwedrink.com/store. And in the meantime, we'll be back here in 2 weeks for another brand new episode. Thank you, everyone who continues to support this show through the little over a year that we've been back to doing this and into the new year. It really means a lot to us that people care about this podcast and think of it as part of their routine when a new episode comes out. It's weird to think we would be part of anyone's routine. But thank you, everyone, once again. For Joel, we'll see you next time. Cheers.
I'll just go.
Yeah. Go.
All right.
Go away.